All right, it's final feelings for Georgia and Florida. The cocktail party. We're right on top of it here. And look, we've not shied away from this at all. I think Georgia is in very good position here to have a big day against the Gators. When you watch both teams play, Georgia's just a significantly better team. There's a reason why they're the number one team in the country. There's a reason why the Gators are not ranked. That this line is, 22 points. So more than three scores is a significant number. It's the largest in the history of this game. It's an amazing. Uh, I don't know how to put it. I wouldn't say accomplishment. It's an amazing snapshot in time. Georgia for such a long time was Florida in this scenario for about 20 years or so, from the beginning of Steve Spurrier's era until the end of Urban Meyer's. But we've now gotten back to the point where Georgia is the better program of the two. I think that's pretty clear. And how long this will last, I don't know. But Kirby Smart is only in year 7, and in year 6, he won the national championship with the Dogs. 80 pages, some stuff you're never going to see anywhere else. DAWGSTRUCTION. Make sure you're picking it up today. We've got really awesome shots from last year's game with the Gators. Pick that up today. The link is down below. I think when you start thinking about look, we watch games at Dog Post. Like, we sit there and watch the games, and not just the Georgia games. And I would say the Gators are the probably this year the second most. I've watched Clemson quite a bit. Obviously, Georgia, Clemson, Florida. I've seen a fair amount of Alabama, and some fair amount of Tennessee. And when you look at the Gators right now, they're just not consistent the way you want to be. When you start talking about Anthony Richardson, he really is physically, probably physically, the best quarterback out there. The problem is that this is only probably start number 12 maybe for him. And it clicks at times, and at times it doesn't. And, he's not a project. He's just straight up raw. He's a raw player. And if you watched Tennessee and the Gators play, Florida outplayed Tennessee in the first half. They were the better team. And Tennessee just, some of that was Tennessee couldn't get out of its own way, but some of it was Florida just drove on them. And you know, against Kentucky, which is the style that the Gators will see this week, I was not at all surprised to see Kentucky win that game. I picked that to happen. I was surprised that Utah didn't beat Florida. So it shows that they can hang around, particularly if you don't score 30 points. This Georgia team is averaging 42 points a game. I mean, they've only once this season scored fewer than 30 points, and that was on the road at Mizzou, a multiple turnover game where Missouri definitely hit some big balls. 5 big plays for Missouri, 5 plays that were over 25 yards by their offense. That's not been something that's normal. I think if you see that happen, the Gators have a chance to make this a second half game. If that doesn't happen, this game's going to get ugly. And so Florida's going to have to play well offensively. Defensively, we've talked about it a lot this week. Florida's situation on third down is just bad. They're not doing a good job of containing things. There are times, when guys are running literally wide open. It was against one way that Tennessee scored a touchdown was there was a guy literally wide open. I mean, there was no one around him, not wide open like 5 yards from the nearest defender, probably 20 yards from the nearest defender, and the safety had to get an angle to stop the Florida, to stop the ball from scoring a touchdown just on that one play. So, uh, you know, um, Florida is just they're not spectacular at any one thing. I again will go back and y'all can hate on Richardson all you want to. That's fine, whatever. If you look at him physically, I mean, he's definitely the real deal physically, but I think he's not where he needs to be in terms of development yet. And you're getting a raw quarterback. Even if you were playing Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud, you'd be talking about teams that would have to go the entire hour of playing football, consistently playing well against Georgia. In this game, Bama couldn't do that in this game. Now they did that in Atlanta because they got some freebies, right? And I mean freebies by they hit some big plays. I think they hit one or two big plays in this game. So that's it's hard to do that against Kirby. This defense gives you nothing. You know how many big plays they've allowed this season, Georgia? 13 total. None of them against Oregon, who's scoring 50 points a game against teams that are not named Georgia. Okay? South Carolina, they had a trick play for 20 yards. That was one of their best plays of the day. So you're just not going to get anything easy on these guys. And when you look at, offensively, the Gators are in the upper half of college football, but it's not anything unbelievable. They are good running the ball. The running backs are legitimate. I think you just look at the running back; they're good. And Richardson's a problem on that front too. But they're not consistent at all passing the ball. They nearly run it for more yards than they do passing. And obviously that's not what I mean. Statistically, that's a real issue because you make more yards when you throw typically. Defense, it's one of the worst in the country. Florida, 109th in the country. They're allowing 429 yards. I mean, Georgia getting 600 yards in this game is not out of the question. It's just not. I mean, total defense for the Gators. Now, total defense is not scoring defense. That's something that needs to really kind of be emphasized here. But Vanderbilt, Florida, and Tennessee are all in the same universe of defense. So Vandy is allowing 470 yards. So it's worse for sure than Tennessee and the Gators, but they're all at the bottom. I don't even know if that's quarter. They're in the fifth quadrant. They're in the bottom 20% of defenses in college football. Vanderbilt, Tennessee, and the Gators. And if you watched Florida, Tennessee, you understood why. I guess if you watched Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, Alabama, you'd understand why. But for the Vols, but Florida's going to have real problems in this game. I've gone down this game forever. My first time going down there was in '97. That was a shocking result. Florida beating Georgia would be more shocking than that day. I mean, that was not the number one team in the country, Florida. They were having issues at quarterback. I believe they had a loss already that season, which I believe was against LSU. I'm trying to remember off just the top of my head. That Georgia team had already shown that they were pretty good. I mean, they had blown out Mississippi State. They had, their only loss was to Tennessee, which was an elite team at the time, a top 5 team. Florida used, I think, 3 quarterbacks that day. It might have been just 2, but I know it was at least 2. And to win by 20 was the kind of amazing part. But I think that it is this game is such a wonderful game. It's a great part of college football that we play it in Jacksonville. I got my issues with Jacksonville for sure. It's not as nice as you'd like it to be around the stadium. The game is not run as well as you would like it to be. I think it's challenging for Florida, who really does run the game on the back end. It's challenging for them. They go to Jacksonville once a year, and they're kind of expected to throw a game. That is challenging, but when the sun is setting on the St. John's, this is what it's just like. It's the seasons. It should happen. It is the sun setting, the horses coming on the field, the colors of the Gators and Dogs. It is really a beautiful sight. If I sound romantic about it, I am. I think it's one of the few games that that you can depend on, and CBS has helped make it that way. CBS has helped make it that way. And more than half my life, I've been going to watch this game. And it defines Georgia's season. It is the biggest game of the year for Georgia. It always is. It doesn't matter if they won. I mean, they beat Florida the year before. I mean, we talk about that. DAWGSTRUCTION, obviously. I mean, they beat them 34-7. And it took them a little bit of time to get going. But they did win the game. But here we are, however many months later, 12 months later, and Georgia's biggest game of the year is still Florida. Now, will that change going into next week? Tennessee will decide the East. Georgia and Tennessee will decide the East. Georgia will be a double-digit favorite over Tennessee in Athens. They are a three-score favorite over the Gators. I think they cover this line. I did not make it my lock of the week. I went with our fine footed friends in Columbia, but I like Georgia's chances here. I feel like I have a good feel for this game. It is sports, but Georgia's just the better team, and I think Florida is still fighting this transition to Billy Napier. They're doing all they can, and they're not horrible. Don't fall into the trap that this is a horrible Florida team. They have played challenging schedule, to be honest. Utah, Kentucky, LSU, Tennessee. These are not, I mean, those teams are all ranked, I believe, right now. LSU may or may not be. That's not nothing for more than half your schedule. So to say Florida's been tested would be accurate. They also, though, they didn't play well in those games. Georgia's been tested. I mean, they went on the road to South Carolina. South Carolina's ranked now. They blew them out by whatever it was. They played Oregon. That they blew them out by 46. So it's not always who you play; it is how you play. And I expect Georgia to play well this week. And this game, as much attention and hype as the UT game is going to get 8 days from now, Georgia's biggest rival is always going to be Florida. Georgia's biggest game is always going to be Florida. And I expect them to perform this weekend.